Good morning, everyone. How are you all feeling this morning? Everybody excited to be here? All right, so welcome to our Youth Budget Talks. I am Samantha Rampersad, your CARICOM Youth Ambassador for Trinidad and Tobago and past National Youth Parliamentarian. It is my pleasure to host you all this morning. And joining me, four well-equipped moderators. I have Government Senator Lawrence Hislop, Member of Parliament, Ms. Vandana Mohet, who is the representative for Chaguanas East. We have Amaris Skeet and Chris Hussein, both who are former National Youth Parliamentarians. Good morning, and thank you all so very much for joining us today. I do hope that we all will have a fruitful discussion. I know we engaged in some breakout session discussions this morning. I hope that stimulates your thoughts a little bit and it opens up our engagement for today. And for those of viewers who are joining us online this morning, welcome. Please engage with us using the chat box. We will be paying very close attention to your comments and questions, so please feel free to share your views and opinions with us. So just to tell you very quickly, I know most of us here already know, but the purpose and what we're hoping to achieve this morning in our Youth Budget Talk initiative is to encourage youth participation in the Parliament and legislative process, to generate youth interest in the budgeting exercises, and to bring young people into the budget review process. So everybody have their notes, everybody have their pens, you all ready to talk? Yes? Yes? Come, let me hear you all. You all ready to talk? You're ready to voice your opinion for Trinidad and Tobago? Yes. Let me hear it one more time. Yes. All right, over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Samantha. A pleasure. Good morning to each and every one of you, and of course, the viewing and listening audience. So I want to kick this off by asking some of my fellow moderators, what were your initial thoughts on the budget? Of course, the budget's theme this year would have been steadfast and resolute, forging pathways to prosperity. We're looking at a revenue around 54.2 billion, an expenditure of 59.7 billion, and of course a deficit of 5.5 billion. So what were your initial thoughts, Amaris? I know that you were sitting next to me in the chamber. We couldn't speak there, but we can speak here. So what were your thoughts?
Hi, good morning everyone, and what a pleasure it is to be here, and I'm looking forward to the very fruitful discussions that we are going to have today. So my initial thoughts on the budget is they are trying and attempting to make everything more equitable for more citizens, right? We see they want to introduce programs such as the National Wi-Fi Initiative, the Community Recovery Committee, which focuses on at-risk communities. So those were my initial thoughts. The attempt to make everything more equitable for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago.
Member for Chaguanas East, what were your initial thoughts?
First of all, a pleasant good morning to you, main host. And good morning to all our valuable youth joining us here. We do look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. Of course, your contribution means a lot to us. In terms of my views of the budget 2025, of course, that would tend to be a little bit political because you know where we both sit, myself and Senator. Initially, when the budget was read, you know, my passion for social services in this country. So, of course, I would have expected more for the poor and vulnerable, given the fact that we are coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, the government would have tried, to inform the population that things are a bit difficult, so we have to expect these types of fiscal measures at this point in time, but still we have expended so much and we are yet to see value for money, and the poor and vulnerable remain in suspense.
Okay, Senator Hislop. Any rebuttals?
Good morning, guys. How you all doing? It's good to be here. It's a pleasure for me to be with the young people of Trinidad and Tobago. I think this platform gives you a great opportunity to be heard, to share your views, and for some of you all to have some good likes on social media, not so? Yeah. It's Chris, right? Chris, I don't know if we're having a debate this morning. We're here to have a discussion. But in terms of the budget, I think what we've seen is the government over the 9 years, bearing in mind that this government had to deal with a situation that no other government has had to deal with in Trinidad and Tobago, which was a pandemic. And the reality is the entire world, not only Trinidad and Tobago, but the entire world is still dealing with the fallout of the pandemic. The slowdown in economies is global. But what I want to commend the Minister of Finance for doing in the budget is sharing with Trinidad and Tobago what the government has done throughout its tenure, throughout its 9-year period. My colleague shared that the poor and vulnerable are still in suspense, but you know, I would say that in Trinidad and Tobago, we took care of our poor and vulnerable throughout the pandemic period and still doing that today. The government there's significant expenditure on transfers and subsidies, and a lot of these transfers and subsidies treat with our poor and vulnerable, our socially displaced. All of these persons within our society are still being well treated by the government. Yeah, you're going to have your challenges where one or two persons will fall through the cracks, but by and large, our socially vulnerable persons are taken care of by the government. We want to continue the conversation. We're not going to get into too much, yeah? So we want to allow the young people. You are here. This is Youth Budget Talks. So let's get it, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking on, as a youth as well, I found the budget to be a bit conservative. And as you said, and I want to agree with you, that we would have, and I think there's a context that we miss as a population when it comes to when we enjoyed the oil booms and the subsidies that we would have enjoyed. And of course, gate for everybody, right? And so what I am looking forward for, of course, in all budget planning, not just this specific one, but in the future as a youth, because, you know, very soon we will be sitting in the same houses that these members are sitting in, right? And so sustainable development is one. Of course, diversifying the revenue streams, because Forex is an issue in this country. Of course, I know the Ministry of Trade actually has done a number of things to alleviate that issue. But of course, we can always do more, correct? And of course, I want to find out from you if you found, what did you think about the budget? Initially, your initial thoughts. You're listening on, I know it could be a bit long, it's lengthy, it can be, but it's on YouTube, we could, go back and watch it, right? And I assume many of us here looked at it a couple of times. But anyone who want to share their first initial thoughts on the budget? Not all at once.
I felt like a lot of the approaches they took to the measures they would have introduced dealt with quantity rather than quality. They would have thrown a lot of numbers, a lot of big numbers, millions and billions of dollars, cars, a lot of things, but I fail to see the plan in these numbers. I fail to see a system that works to fix the problems that we have. And I fail to see how these numbers are going to interconnect to build our society. It's all well and good to put money into things, but we need to see change. And we've been seeing them put lots of money towards the big ones, crime and education, for years. But where are we seeing the improvement? And that's my question for the government.
Hi, good morning. Syed Ali from Naparima College. So my initial thoughts on the budget for fiscal 2025 was that it was a decent budget in the sense that it is good in getting us through the following fiscal year, but in my opinion, I think it lacked foresight for the future a bit. There were definitely opportunities that the Honorable Minister took to diversify in the future, especially when it came to tourism and some other sectors, which I'll go into more detail later. But I think we could have gone a little further with the planning for the future, as well as funds for the repair of schools, and as well as some issues facing the health sector, which I plan to talk about a bit more later. Thank you.
Pleasant good morning to everyone. My name is Karina Nanan, a former youth parliamentarian, amongst other many things with youth space. So my position on the budget was, like to agree with Senator Hislop, the government already went through a really difficult period. So given what they were able to do, it was in support of people. When you look at a budget and you take in where young people are at, they did a lot of things to support young people through the Ministry of Youth Development and National Services, so I'm really happy about that. They pumped more money in terms of health and education, which is very important, and that shows you the commitment of a government when they take care of their people by putting the highest allocation. So I'm happy for that. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Malik Wilson, representing the Youth Parliamentary Network. And I think the budget that we received from the Honorable Colm Imbert was well balanced in the sense that we recognize the economic climate that we're in currently, and we also recognize that the budget, a significant proportion of the budget is in recurrent expenditure. I'm sure we all can agree here that we still have subsidized gas, subsidized electricity rates, we still have free education, free healthcare, and I think the government is making the most of the current situation, and they recognize the needs of the citizens and have prioritized that in the budget. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cameron Glodor from Holy Cross College. My initial thoughts on the budget presentation by the Honorable Minister is that throughout all these sectors within the government, there has been, year over year, a lot of money put into all the sectors, but I haven't seen a lot of planning for the future. I've seen a lot of maintenance of the country, so like the subsidies for various sectors and money being invested in the country, but nothing for long-term future development of the nation. Thank you.
Okay, so I've heard comments such as a well-balanced budget, a decent budget, and so forth. So my question to you all is, if you had a choice in terms of planning the budget, what sectors in particular would you prioritize?
Good morning. Check, check. Yep. Okay. Good morning again. Christian BDC, Trinidad Youth Council. So, for me, I would prioritize education, one, social services, health, and youth development. However, for me as a youth advocate, I just want to go deeper into the youth development aspects of it. We're all young people here, so I'm sure that we've seen over the course of the last year to 2 years, under the leadership of Minister Cummings, the Ministry of Youth Development would have had a lot of programs for young people. However, based on the information that we have and the statistics that we have, we know that in a lot of these programs, there's a high dropout rate, if you want to refer to it as that, right? Now, I think these dropout rates are in specific programs. And I would say this because I had the opportunity to be part of one of their recent programs, the National Leadership Training Program. And there wasn't a single dropout in that specific program that they had. We started the course with 100 students, we ended it with 100 students. Whereas you will often hear in the programs like YAP and Amplify and all of these things that there's a significant dropout rate. So I think now with this allocation of 338 or 36 million, we should place more focus on programs that the young people themselves want to see. And I think a good indicator was this morning when the senator said there isn't anybody with agricultural interest in here, which should be alarming to us because we want to reduce our food bill, but we have a room full of young people and not one single person is interested in agriculture. So for me, I think with those allocation of funds, we need to prioritize what we're doing with those funds and how effective the use of those funds are. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Amy Narayan, representing Caribbean Women in Leadership. If I had to choose for the biggest three allocations, I agreed with the budget having health, education, and national security as the first three and the biggest three, and with health getting the lion's share, because as a people, we need healthy people in order for any country or any population to survive and to sustain themselves, as well as Trinidad and Tobago has an aging population, which means that we need to take our health extra serious because the young people that we are now, we have to maintain our health so that we can fill in these positions that the older heads may soon leave. And we also need to take care of the elderly population as well. So I'm really happy to see that health was given such a big allocation. I also do hope to see from the budget that not just physical health being taken seriously, that mental health would be given something from that as well, and more focus would be on it as well. Thank you.
All right, good morning to all viewing audience. My name is Luke James Shrim, CARICOM Youth Ambassador and President of the Tobago Students Association. So what stood out to me was the allocation that was given to the education sector and also health. If I were the Honorable Minister responsible for education, I will ask myself one critical question, and that is, how can I revamp and modernize the education system? I think globally we have observed that our international counterparts, they have made bold and progressive steps towards enhancing the education system for primary and tertiary education. I think that our education sector, they really need to prioritize and boost initiatives that will, foster digital transformation. If I was also the Honorable Minister, in terms of GATE, what I would like to see as a young person is that targeted marketing initiatives that will really educate our youth that, you don't have to become a doctor, you don't have to become a lawyer. How are we now going to market those emerging non-traditional degrees? I think that if we are to take this strategic shift, we can now observe coming out of Trinidad and Tobago, we will have innovators, we will have climate change specialists, we will have experts when it comes to diversification. And then now as a country, we will kind of move away from us overfunding degrees that are already in oversaturated areas. Point on health. need to pull up my data. I'm not a professional with numbers. I would like to say that the allocation, in my opinion, I think it was a balanced and fair allocation. At the end of the day, you know, a healthy population leads to sustainable development. And if we don't prioritize health, other sectors within our nation, they will, you know, falter. So I would just like to make the point that, you know, with that being said, I think it's critical that we need to explore the intersection between health and education. For example, how are we going to, you know, implement like health initiatives into our school curricula? Because when we do that now, we are now empowering our youth to make smart and, you know, the right decisions when it comes to health, one. Two, and then we're going to foster a culture of our young people. They are now going to, you know, be at the front line when it comes to, you know, preventing comorbidities and sickness and all those lovely stuff. And another statistic I want to pull up is that right in Tobago, I used to work in a hospital, and I know the situation with the files and patient information. I think I would like to see greater strategic thinking when it comes to digitizing our healthcare system. I think we need to really prioritize the value of our patient information. Right now, I think we all know that most of the files are still physical, that they are exposed to risks such as mismanagement, misplacement, most importantly, exposure to the elements. I think we need to digitize our healthcare system, and that in turn will, you know, result in our hospital system being a bit more efficient. You know, the wait times will be less. We wouldn't have that situation, which is a huge problem of people coming for their clinic days, coming to the doctor, and their patient file cannot be found. So if I were the ministers responsible for education and also responsible for health, these are some of the initiatives I would like to focus on.
Hi, good. Hi, good morning. My name is Kyle Chinley, and I am representing Fatima College, Port of Spain. And as a student athlete myself, I am really intrigued about sporting in Trinidad and Tobago. And they said in the national budget that the sporting equipment is now exempt from taxes, which is a great thing and all. And that means that more youth will populate more sports, and we will have a higher population now to pick from and have better teams, therefore, or better personnel to contribute to Trinidad and Tobago's sporting areas. Well, for me, I think that another thing that the minister could have done is allocated funds to actual traveling for sports. Whereas, as I play sports, most of the money comes out of my own pocket when I go to travel and represent country. And if I go to represent Trinidad and Tobago, I would like for the government to help me out, so I can bring back to them and show them that Trinidad does have very talented people. It just our population size is low. So it's really just that, and I really would like to see more funds allocated, maybe in the next fiscal year or thereafter, because the youth really need to go out and represent Trinidad and Tobago, and a lot who are in sports now, especially from certain areas in Trinidad and Tobago, we don't have the money to actually go abroad and represent and show our faces. So I think help from the government would be very essential in that. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nikolai Rambasad, Vice President, Trinidad and Tobago Youth Ambassador. Personally, I would not envy the job of Minister of Finance. Being the financial advisor to the government, a heavy, heavy portfolio. However, if given that responsibility, I would say my top allocations would be education and agriculture. I feel as though when I attended primary school, we had the part of the school curriculum where we had grow boxes. Build your grow box and you grow cabbage, lettuce, sorrel, and it was agriculture was integrated into the education system. I must add that it's not that young persons are not interested in the agricultural sector. I feel there has been a stigma that has been associated with agriculture as the poor man's job. we have to remember we came from the sugarcane industry, which is agriculture. That was the industry we came from. So I think we need to break that stigma of agriculture being the poor man's job, incorporate it back into the school curriculum, not just with primary, but secondary and tertiary education as well. Because we spend billions on our food import bill. We need to grow the food that we are going to feed the people of the nation. So I think education and agriculture being education given one of the largest shares in the budget. I am very pleased to see that. The youth are the future, as our first Prime Minister said, the future of our nations and the book bag of our children. And I think we need to break that stigma of agriculture being that poor man's job. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Naomi Wilson. I am from Naparima Girls High School. And if I were in the position of the Honorable Minister, I would still have my three greatest allocations go towards health, education, and national security. But I think national security should have been a higher priority. The crime index in Trinidad and Tobago right now is 70.8. That is the 7th highest crime index worldwide. So clearly, crime is a serious problem in the country. If we put more allocations toward national security, that would put more of a relief on the health sector, making the allocations put towards that more effective. Also, in future budgets, when we are putting allocations towards health, education, other sectors, treating with the crime issue now would mean that we wouldn't have to put as much allocations and focus on it continuously for the next few years. Treating with national security now, putting more allocations towards it would also improve living. I saw a lot in the budget moving towards improving standard of living with technology, digitalization, sustainability, but the lives of people in Trinidad and Tobago right now, at least on the less wealthy end, some of them are in deep poverty, not in the best areas. The rural areas don't have as much facilities. So I think that if we improve national security now, it would help improve that living of people being fearful in Trinidad for their lives, you know, people being scared to walk down the streets in the night or to go out in certain areas because they are afraid that someone might have a shootout, honestly. I also think that if we are moving more towards technology and digitalization, then that would open doors for technological abuse, which we would need more allocations toward the national security in order to prevent that. Because while technology does reduce white-collar crime, it still gives avenues for people to invent new ways of making crimes. Also, if we do not put more towards national security. I know that there was a lot in increasing the number of police vehicles and Coast Guard vessels. And I know that they said that there are some right now, but they were not maintained properly. I think putting more towards national security would help prevent that in the future, so we would not have to continuously keep buying new vehicles for our defense force. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Is everyone hearing me fine? Okay, great. So I agree with my colleague from Naparima Girls High School that education and health is definitely two of the sectors that I believe deserves the largest allocations along with national security. First of all, I'd like to commend the Minister of Finance for pushing for the provision of e-textbooks. I think that that is a great initiative to lower the cost of physical textbooks as well as lessen the physical load on our students' backs with the physical textbooks. Also, prior to Monday, one of the things I was hoping for was an increase for our teachers, our nation's teachers, because I was going to say that 4% isn't enough. I'm very happy that the Honorable Minister stated that he will be providing a further 5% increase for them, and also that the government will be assisting in paying off UE's debts. My concerns, however, are that more funds needs to be allocated for the repairs of schools and as well as the abandoned schools throughout the country, some of which would have been like 80% complete. For example, Lafayette Primary School, Reform Hindu, and the list goes on. So I wish that some more funds could be allocated to these abandoned school projects. There was no mention as well of the abandoned UE campus in Debe. I'm from the constituency of Urupuch East, and that's in the heart of Urupuch East. I know in last year's budget it was briefly mentioned that some funds would be allocated to convert it to a global medical campus, but there was no mention of the campus this year. Additional funding as well for security in schools, because recently we would have seen headlines with shootings and stuff near or outside schools. Also, I think we can look at the procurement process to maybe change it a bit so that school repairs can be carried out a bit faster, so we can avoid the issues that we would have seen at St. George's College, where the school term started and the school wasn't adequately prepared. On the topic of health, I believe that, first of all, I want to commend the Minister of Finance, because the Ministry of Health was given the largest portion of the budget. But as we were stating earlier, if we had to take care of the most vulnerable in society, I do think we need to look at the way we provide healthcare in the health system and the way we allocate those resources, because there is the amount being given by the Minister of Finance, but then how is that amount being allocated? For example, at the San Fernando General Hospital, my school is in San Fernando. At the San Fernando General Hospital, the CT scan machine there has been down for weeks, and the most vulnerable in our country, like cancer patients, for example, cannot get CT scans. So are we really looking after the most vulnerable in the nation if something as simple as a critical CT scan for somebody who is terminally ill cannot be carried out? So I don't want to take up too much time, so I'll end there. Thank you very much.
And I will use this opportunity just to jump in for a quick bit and reiterate, as some of you have mentioned, so I will not envy the job of the Minister of Finance at all. I could barely speak for an hour straight, farm for 5, so in the future, that is not a job that I will be aiming for. So if we have anybody inside here interested in being Minister of Finance? No? I will say, though, I know last year when we had a post-budget discussion, e-textbooks was a conversation that we started having. And I'm very thankful to see that being implemented now. And it's now a conversation, again, that's actually put on the agenda and something that we could expect and anticipate in the very near future. Somebody mentioned the challenges that they also face when they travel and, to represent Trinidad and Tobago, and we have to pay out of pocket. As somebody who, not so long ago, their past life was very much heavily involved in pageantry and modeling, I know how expensive that traveling could be because I had to pay out of pocket as well. I know Chris and I had the pleasure of having a conversation about this. Perhaps we need to look forward to establishing some sort of ambassadorship program and how that will also benefit us in terms of trade and tourism when it comes to marketing Trinidad and Tobago. So I would say that I was very thankful for the prioritizations and the views and opinions shared by our young people here today. And I know our minister is eager to share with us, so I will pass on to her now. Our member, sorry.
Don't promote me too early. Yes. So what we have heard from you so far is the priorities, which is really good. You all are on the right track, I must say. And you are definitely well involved in your country. But what we would like to hear from you as young people is how has this budget impacted you? How do you think it will impact you in the coming year? Let's speak a little bit about you as young people and move away from the priorities a little bit, which is also very crucial because it, of course, helps with planning, government's planning and policies. But let's hear a little bit about you, the impact on you from this budget presentation. I'm sure many of you would want to participate in this part of it.
Hi. Hi, good morning. I'm Hannah Walcott, representing, to my online viewers on the panel, good morning. My colleagues as well, good morning. I'm Hannah Walcott, and I'm representing the University of the Southern Caribbean. So one of the things that I believe would really impact me as a youth is definitely, well, one of my colleagues said that agriculture, but they are actually youth interested in agriculture, and I know that the Minister of Youth in collaboration with agriculture, they collaborated with initiatives such as the Youth and Agricultural Programs, and they wish to continue that. So I think giving that opportunity to continue those programs, and there are many other, it will give a chance for those who may not be technically interested in academics, but they may be interested, they're like hands-on, so it will give them an opportunity to use their ability, their hands-on ability, to go in agriculture and make something for themselves, because the program, it does have great benefits, quote unquote, for the youth, such as the housing and access to land. So I think that is a good program that they are continuing, and it would affect me, who is someone interested in agriculture. Thank you.
You know, I'm hearing a number of concerns. Specifically, we're discussing, as the MP brought up, the allocations, if it's a good figure, if it's should be higher, if it should be lower. And sometimes, because, you know, as we said, we did the Youth Parliament a couple of years ago actually. And we too were invited to have conversations in this place and other places regarding the budget. And I find we can get to a place of talking about GDP and nominal and real and those big terms. But when you speak to impact of the youth, I think that is something that, and I know that all of us would have listened and looked at the budget a couple of days ago. But for some of us who don't know, the budget continues. And so it gives the opposition leader on this Friday, I believe it's at 10 a.m., and so she will have her response, she'll be allocated the exact same time as the Minister of Finance, and then government members will get to their legs, raise to their legs, and they will contribute. And so some of the things that we always, and someone mentioned not admiring the minister's portfolio, because you have 5 hours, but you have, well, he utilized it 5 hours, but you have to conceal the entire vision of where the government is going. And so it's a difficult task, and this is where the debate is important. So I will continue to look on to see how the fiscal will be used by the line ministers. Of course, there's the Standing Finance Committee. So when we speak about accountability and transparency, those yellow books are important. And then, of course, I assume MP Mohit will also get to her legs, and she shall speak in the debate. And I assume also you, Senator Hislop, when it comes to the Senate, you all will have your discussion there as well. Some of the things discussed, I heard mental health, and I know that is an issue for many of our generation, and I know, can we safely say majority of the room is Gen Z? Yes? And so mental health is something that we have a keen focus on. Of course, I heard discussion about the orange economy, about brand tourism, brand Trinidad and Tobago, how we can package that brand of Trinidad and Tobago and sell it on the market. So for me, I look at Carnival, the Carnival industry, and we tell the world what Carnival looks like, what it sounds like, sometimes what it tastes like, you know. And so how we can maybe reform that model, that business model, because we are talented people. AI and its impact. I want to hear what you all think about AI and how it's going to drive Trinidad and Tobago in the future. But before you answer that, I want to mention, because I just remembered this, we're speaking about agriculture, and Christian, you raised a good point about the interests. But I think the Ministry of Youth Development has identified that there's a gap. And so the Homestead initiative is, in my view, it's supposed to reform the culture that young people look at agriculture. For some of you who don't know, there's a grant, there's a certain, I believe it's a startup home, there's a program, and so that is, to me, visionary, which we will see in the future. One of the things that I'm looking forward to with the Minister of Agriculture, when he comes to his legs, so youth development, good job with agriculture and reforming the culture. But Minister of Agriculture, I'm looking forward to hear about land tenure and some of the issues the farmers face. You know, they have issues with accessing loans. Yeah, that's a big issue. And so this is where I think we need to continue looking on at the budget, because as much as we try to hope the minister spoke about everything, the line ministers will then come and maybe develop what possibly justify the spends from last year and what worked, what didn't work, and how they, are looking forward to spending this new allocation come forward. But I want to get your thoughts on AI, because I know that is something that is, most of us in here use it for school, Yeah. Don't lie, we know, right? If it's to prompt the projects, whatever it is, we know we on ChatGPT, right? So I want to hear, someone must have some sort of input when it comes to AI and what it means for Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, the labor market. Yes, because we're looking at reskilling, retooling our public servants, correct?
Hannah Walcott again from the University of the Southern Caribbean. I think that AI, as a university student, we use AI majority of the times, but not to write our essays. However, I think that AI shouldn't be seen as a negative thing. I think it should be seen as a tool to aid in the education system, especially because we're looking at we're looking at advancing, so AI is part of our technical advancement. So if it is, we could incorporate AI into the education system to help students, to help develop different training programs, because not all students learn the same way. We have a diversity of students, whether they learn by auditory, visual, etc. But use AI and train the teachers as well to use it, because teachers need to be up to date with technology, use it in the education system, in the schools, and not be seen as a negative. So that's my input. Thank you.
Good morning again. So I want to take a different perspective on how AI could be used, especially locally for us here in Trinidad. Some years ago, somewhere in Trinidad, we would have lost electricity for a significant period of time. And later on, we found out that a tree caused that electrical outage. I think for me, we have a lot of infrastructure issues, whether it be a shortage of gas to supply the electrical services or whatever. I think we can use AI to solve these problems, or even figure out where the problems originate from. Because we cannot negate the fact that we are humans and human error is part of everything that we do. So if you have AI integrated into the electrical system or the water system, you are able now to see, okay, San Fernando isn't getting water. Why isn't San Fernando getting water? And now because you have AI integrated into the system, they can now pinpoint where this problem is, what is causing the problem, and potential fixes that can possibly be faster than what we humans would come up with, one. Two, I also think that if we are looking into including AI into our infrastructure or as a country, we also have to look at our existing infrastructure, because as we know, artificial intelligence cannot function without internet connectivity. And I think that is an issue that we struggle with here in Trinidad significantly. I have a background in technology. Currently, there is no internet service provider that provides us with a 24/7 service that doesn't give you some kind of drop in connectivity or drop in bandwidth. And simple things like that could affect how AI is deployed in Trinidad. Even if we take it further and we go towards the cashless society that the Honorable Minister would have mentioned a while back, without infrastructure, the frequency in which electricity goes, I mean, simple things like that we have to take into consideration, especially when we're looking at AI.
Good day to everyone. My name is Kyan Timothy, and I am from Polytechnic Sixth Form Government School. To me, adding AI into our society will be a dangerous task. I think it can be used in many negative ways as well as positive. If we were to add AI into our society, we would have to also increase and better our cyber protection and cyber security. AI is a powerful tool that can be used in many aspects. It can be used for school, as my colleague said. It can be used for structural agreements, but it can also be used to harm people and to trick people or to deceive. And every day AI improves, and every day you can change your voice, you can change how you look, deep fakes and such. And I believe that a lot of elder people, even parents now, don't understand and would not understand the difference between AI and real life. And I think that in order for us to really introduce AI into our society, we also have to have educational forums, educational talks about the actual development of AI and its powers. And thank you, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Darian Mitchell, Tobago Youth Council President. As it relates to AI and young persons, a lot of us, we overlook job displacement and job creation. Now, displacement, as Mr. Trim was speaking about the digitization of the files within within the health sector, a lot of persons who are working in the file cabinet now, they will be losing jobs if it is now digitized because AI will be functioning and you wouldn't need as much persons within that area. Now, in terms of creation, now there are persons who we would need, as you would have just mentioned, in terms of utilizing the cyber security or the cyber aspect of it, because we need the cyber security to detect or to protect against the AI. In addition to that, the deep fakes. How can we now detect deep fakes? Because you'll have to actually use AI in order to detect if AI is doing deep fakes. So that now gives us the opportunity to send persons abroad or even locally to learn to operate or to detect these deep fakes, so as well as to increase the cyber security of Trinidad and Tobago. So that now means that more money will now also have to go in towards national security to have these persons within the TTPS and other agencies be trained in order to detect these things. Because if it's a cyber crime to that extent, how can you now determine if a video is fake in terms of, let's say there's a shooting? How can you determine if that identity of that person is real or fake if there were no witnesses, but there is the video that shows that that person did commit the crime? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kersha Mitchell, and I represent the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago. I actually have two different thoughts on AI. I think that it can be beneficial in the sense that it causes improvement in accuracy and efficiency of tasks being done. But I think that it can also be dangerous in Trinidad. It can cause us to lose job security. It acts as a threat in that sense. It would replace a lot of jobs because AI has been seen all over the world to replace jobs such as secretaries to performing surgeries by robots. This can lead to further issues such as crime and migration, as people will turn to alternate sources to try to get money. During the budget discussion, there was the...
I do see AI as positive. I think saying that we shouldn't utilize AI because it would make us lose jobs is thinking kind of backwards, because I mean, when industrialization happened and we had these machines who could now do what factory workers used to do, people were scared for their jobs, yes, but society went on. New jobs were created. And what we're looking at now is that we're moving towards a knowledge-based labor industry. It's not as much focused on labor that you don't need to think about, right? So things like, not that you don't need to think about, but things that can be automated, those jobs are becoming more obsolete. This is a positive. It means there's room in our society where we need to build innovative and critical thinkers. That is what AI is calling us to do. it's not saying, oh, we won't have any more jobs. It's saying that we need to be creators, we need to be innovators, we need to be making jobs for ourselves and using AI as a tool to facilitate that. One thing I do think is that AI should be integrated into our education system. One way that I see that becoming almost an easy integration is that the minister would have mentioned a numeracy program, which I think was very important because our pass rate for CSEC maths would have declined to 42.1%. And math is not only just math, it's also an indicator of critical thinking and logic. And that's an important skill to have in your citizens. So I think using AI in that numeracy program to really pinpoint exactly where students are falling short kind of reduces that mental block that a lot of people form towards math. And I think that was one way I see AI becoming relevant. I also did see that, for example, the robots that were gifted to us by India could be used to streamline the public sector. We have an extremely inefficient public sector. I think everyone here, once you have something like your driver's license, you know what it is to spend all day in the public sector, running around, getting your passport printed and XYZ printed. If AI is used, I think that integration of sectors and documents could be extremely beneficial. And while, yes, in the short run, jobs will be lost, progress sometimes requires short-term sacrifices. And overall, this is something that I feel governments tend to lack. And it's not a shortfall of a particular government. I think all governments will do that because at the end of the day, they're trying to win the next election. And sometimes sustainable development requires seeing further than the next 5 years. Thank you.
Before our next speaker, Chris, I'd like to add, I love where the conversation is going as it relates to AI. And something that I took away from the budget is the solar-powered sustainability project in secondary schools. And this project would be implementing solar panels in 26 secondary schools in Trinidad and Tobago. I found that to be a great initiative. Something else, so one of you would have mentioned that there's a stigma on agriculture. It is seen as a poor man's job. However, we are seeing there are measures going to take place. For example, the artificial intelligence to monitor clients, to track farmer registration and so forth. We see they are going to replant the coconut on the east coast of Trinidad of approximately 900 acres. So these are things that we need to look at. And I'll also add, as young persons, as leaders of today and not just tomorrow and the future, you know, we should think about not just the problems that come with it, but let us look at solutions for our future, because this is our country.
Hi, good morning. Mishka Lynch, representing the Youth Council and also part of the National Youth Ambassador Program. Now, AI is something very important to us, especially youths, I would say. We use it in our everyday life, whether it be to, well, I don't use it for the essays and stuff like that for education-wise, right? But I think it's something positive for us as youths and maybe the elder ones once you get the hang of the technology. But I also like to use this time to look at AI as something, it's a stepping stone, yes, for us in this steadfast fiscal year. But I see the lack in the education sector with it. And I'd like to use this as the time to talk about technology in the education sector. Technology being implemented at school, particularly primary school level. The Minister of Finance spoke about a vision that they had, and they would like to implement an effective from June 2025. In fact, for the vision to be executed and to take recognition, schools need proper access to be reliable, meaning internet, as the plan is for all of us students to have access to e-book learning. platforms from textbooks to more interactive form of learning resources. Better quality in both primary and secondary schools. Schools will also be given computers, identifying rooms as computer rooms. And up to this very day, computers are still yet to be commissioned, meaning not in use. Must I add, with the implementation of the digital rollout literacy, there is a need for primary schools, IT, and computer teachers. Meaning, how can we use AI in our schools, more so primary and secondary? How can we use AI when internet services are yet to be installed in rural areas particularly? So I say AI, yes, it's positive, but we need to do something with our rural areas and the primary school levels in these rural areas, right? Because yes, we are willing to learn. Yes, we are willing to move to the digital platform. But how can this be done without the internet services?
Pleasant. Good morning to everyone. My name is Karina Nanan. I'm former youth parliamentarian, president of the Willow Foundation, and many other hats. I just want to support what Ms. Jazara Adams, brilliant contribution on where AI is going. Basically as well, 251.8 million went into the budget for Ministry of Digital Transformation, which means that that's a nice amount of money. It's not the greatest and the highest, but AI is definitely needed. We have a lot of services that are already being rolled out by government with digital transformation. We have Ministry of Rural Development has a local government app. The Ministry of Works and Transport, if you need to go renew any sort of, ID card, your driver's permit, your anything you need to, I do drive all yes, so I know many of us here still need to go get a driver's license. So you can now get that accessibility. We have TT Connect, which is giving you free Wi-Fi if you go in the bus, if you go in the library, any public space, you have that. So what AI would do as well, it supports personalized analytics that can now transform things for personal services for citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, there's the fear of, I'm going to lose my work, because the AI versus human resource is a big topic of conversation. But if we have the training sessions, if we're able to sensitize where we go with this, AI will be our best friend, and it gives us a better service development for Trinidad. It helps government agencies, and it gives us citizens more accessibility to everything with shorter spaces of time. Thank you.
So, thank you. Whilst you come to the mic, I'm really enjoying the conversation as it relates to AI, because we are requiring of the government better services. We're requiring of the government quicker service. But as my friend, what's your name again? Jazara. Jazara said, and I think that's the catchphrase for the morning, progress requires, in some instances, short-term sacrifices. We have to understand that not because you're moving into a technological era, because technology is now the new revolution. Because you made the point about the Industrial Revolution. People were afraid that machines would take away all the work in the Industrial Revolution. And we are at a stage now where if we want services quicker, better service, that technology, AI, adds to that. We'll take the young man and then I'll ask you the follow-up question, or my questions after that.
Good morning once again, everyone, listeners and my colleagues here. I'm hearing everyone speaking about AI, and I'm really only hearing about the chatbots that we have. They want AI to be used in education, and I think we're moving a bit fast, because like the Tobagonian contributor said, in Tobago, there's still paper documents. When I went for my driver's permit, it's still paper documents you need to submit. So we're not even at the baseline level of having proper information technology systems in place. But we're at AI, the discussion has reached to artificial intelligence, to machine learning. I think where the discussion has reached a bit far. While I think it's great to be speaking about AI at this point, the position that we're in now, the financial position of the country, and even in schools and in all the sectors, schools, the energy sector, not the energy sector far ahead, but schools, health, and the public sector, social services, I think we need to do some more investment into just basic IT needs, such as the training, such as having computer systems in place to do basic stuff in the government services, instead of moving so quickly into AI. I think it goes back to the adage that we have champagne taste with more money. We're not there yet. Thank you.
Well, just to add some meat to what I think is Karina said it. There has been significant movement within the last, I would say, within the last 4 years, as it relates to digitization. The Minister of Digital Transformation has been doing significant work. It has been quiet, but there has been significant work. The platforms that are being created, she made mention of licensing. Licensing has moved leaps and bounds from when I from when I first applied for my driver's license. You can do almost everything for licensing office online right now, and so there is. But we also have to bear in mind that you are going into a sector that for 60 plus years has been paper-based. And you are going to get pushback from persons who have grown accustomed to that paper-based system. And you're looking at changing an entire culture from paper-based to digital. But it is not reinventing the wheel, because within the private sector, within our banking sector, but even though you have digitization within the private sector and the banking sector, you still have significant paper as well. Yeah. So there has been movement, and I know with the injection of the allocation to that ministry that the work will continue. Yeah.
Good morning again. So I wanted to add something to what Cameron, I believe it is, it's the name, said. We have a Ministry of Digital Transformation that has been allocated somewhere around 2 million or somewhere thereabouts, right? The purpose of the Ministry of Digital Transformation is in the name, to transform the digital infrastructure of Trinidad and Tobago. However, as he said, we are at AI, we are at machine learning, but the base of what digital transformation is supposed to be hasn't even been impacted as yet. Yes, we have the local government app. We have now you could renew certain driver's documents online. But things such as your birth certificate, your passport, forms to fill out in immigration, these are things that you still have to do physically. Now, in my mind, because I have a background in technology, I could say and I could tell you that it is easy to implement, but then we also have to think about we're on a larger scale. We have an entire population to deal with.
So whilst you're on your legs, if I could just
sure.
Shoot a question at you.
Sure.
Is it that we, and this is for all of you, is it that we struggling with a finance issue or a culture issue? And then outside of that, how do you see yourselves being the catalyst for change in governance? Do you see a separation between you as youth and governance? And if you see that, how do you bridge that? So is it that we treating with a money issue, or is that we treating with a culture issue amongst the population? And you as leaders, because you're here as leaders from your various organizations and schools, how do you bridge the gap between where we are as a people and how do we get there? What's the bridge between youth and youth leadership and governance?
So I think the issue is a little bit of both. It's both a finance and a culture issue. You will always hear, we don't have enough money to do this. But I think there's a solution for that in the way of foreign investment. Because we have organizations like the IDB that invest heavily into technology infrastructure in countries, especially in Trinidad. And we had the opening or the launch of the Arima Connect project, where anywhere in Arima you could get Wi-Fi now once you're on a public street, right? But I also think it's culture, because why when Granny go in the office or the passport form and they say, well, Granny, you had to go online to make a form or make an appointment. Granny don't want to do that, Granny want to stand up in the line, fill out a form, hand you the form, and she wants to see you put that stamp on it and submit it. So I think in order to kind of fix that, we have to now educate the public. But the way we educate the public needs to be on a level-by-level basis, because the way a young person will understand and be educated is not the same way an older person will be educated. So I think it's a thing where the government now, or should I say the persons responsible for educating the public on these things, should now make a decision and say, hey, we are going to have an educational campaign targeted towards senior citizens or persons between the ages of 50 to, let's say, 60, 65, 70, somewhere around there. Let us put out some information targeted towards them, and we have workshops and training sessions that are able now to correlate that information in a way that they could understand it. In terms of us as young people, I see us now influencing the policies that govern these services and these things that we want to implement technology-wise, because oftentimes we would have consultations after the fact. And the fact is that the youth perspectives need to be included before and not necessarily after, right? The budget, we did the budget. But before the budget is even done, documents need to be submitted. Was the youth population asked, well, hey, as young people, let us bring in a room, let us discuss with the young people what these allocations should be, or if a portion of each individual ministry should be allocated to what youth-centric initiatives. So I think it needs, as young people, we need to be included before rather than after. And that is how we now will be able to influence those decisions and bridge that gap between the governance aspect and our, as young people, having that voice.
I also believe we may be challenged with a communication issue, because I just received the message that you can't order your boot paper online and it's delivered to you via TT Post. The payment, so right. So there are some. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Hi, morning. My name is Celicia Tony on behalf of the Tobago Youth Council. As we are on the topic of birth certificates, so yesterday I went into the office at company registry in Tobago, and there was an uproar because there were a lot of persons there to get birth certificates, and they were making noise because they had to wait long to just pay $25 for the birth certificate. So what I'm thinking is that probably if they can have like a kiosk that you can go to, you enter whatever information you need to, you make a payment, and the kiosk prints the certificate, because it was chaotic there yesterday. Also, as we are talking about AI, I'm not too sure if you all in the room are familiar with the company registry's new system where you're registering businesses. It is very chaotic because a lot of persons are not computer literate. So even, I do registration for business. I own a company called Tony's Accounting and Financial Services, where I register business for persons, and I also do procurement services as well. So I go to company registry very often, and you have persons coming into the office and they don't understand how to use the system. I think before the system was implemented, no talks were done, because I figured the system was implemented because the other would have crashed. And then with the new system now, there are a lot of negatives, because sometimes you may enter your information, then you have to log what is called a ticket now, and with the ticket, sometimes it takes like 7 to 14 working days before they actually answer the tickets. And let me go a little bit further. Now you see the government is cracking down on businesses and companies that are not paying their registered and they are not doing their annual returns. You have to use that system to do your annual returns, and that in itself is also another issue because sometimes you go into the system and some of the directors, their information is not present. So you have to go back, log a tickets, and they're taking probably 20 days, 30 days to respond. So I think these are some things that the government need to definitely work on. Thank you.
So, if I can just add to what Senator was talking about, whether it is really a money problem or a culture problem. And the truth is, we have the funds there, but I believe that accountability and enforcement of certain initiatives, certain even enforcement within our TTPS and so forth, it is needed. For example, if we look at our culture, if you tell persons, you know what, Trinidad and Tobago, we are going to switch to a 4-day work week, there are certain sectors of our society, they are going to complain and they are going to say, so how is my business going to operate? How am I going to make money? If you tell them, here what, to eliminate the traffic on our roads and so forth, to improve the livelihoods of citizens, we are going to change the time we call schools. So secondary schools would have a different time, preschools would have a different time, tertiary institutions would have a different time. They would see a problem with that as well. So I do believe that we have the money, yes, but a lot of it has to do with our culture.
I just want to come in quickly here to comment on that as well, because I wrote down, I think budget after budget, we discuss again figures, and I believe we in Trinidad and Tobago, we are in a transitionary period right now. So I think we can sing and dance at the same time, yeah? I don't think we need to choose, yeah, we can walk and chew gum, correct? So when it comes to, and transitionary in every aspect, when it comes to the workplace culture, the way we Gen Z approach productivity is not the same way that the baby boomers would have, yeah? Differences in how we approach, is it an 8 to 4? Is it a hybrid system? When we look at mental health, we prioritize that, we understand that. I think we are a bit more privileged in that we benefited from a system that allowed us to understand that a bit more. You look at the energy sector, we are transitioning to renewables. Ministry of Planning, Ministry of Public Utilities would have done quite some, some secret things. When I say secret, I think it has not been communicated enough, but there are things, and that too is a transition, because you're looking at feasibility. We hear about solar, wind, geothermal, hydro, all of these different renewables, and people think it's something that you switch immediately. Well, let's not forget TNTech exists, right? And let's not forget that we also would have invested much in a fossil fuel economy. And so we are transitioning. The question is, are we ready? Are we really, truly ready as a country to transition and for our culture to shift from what it once was?
Hi, good morning. My name is Nathaniel Gander from Presentation College San Fernando. Yes, we speak about implementing AI into our daily lives. Modernization, yes, we can all agree that the government is leading to a more digital aspect of life, where we have e-passports, fingerprint for the immigration, e-books, etc. As a student, I would like to focus on the education sector specifically. As we have the second largest portion of the budget, are we really set up to have this AI with us? For example, not only in rural communities, but all schools in general, do these schools have access to proper Wi-Fi, internet access? Do they have enough projectors? Do they have enough laptops, computers, other devices to facilitate every student? So I think we need to focus from the start with these basic things, and moving towards these further AI, more complicated AI processes. Additionally, students, we can all agree that each student, we go to lessons, online lessons now. Nobody really goes to physical lessons anymore. But do students of Trinidad and Tobago have access to proper Wi-Fi in their home? Or do they have access to a device that can allow them to access these classes and have an equal access to education like everyone else? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning again, Nikolai Rambasad, trying to be Youth Ambassadors. So, Senator, I think in response to your question, is it a funding issue or a culture issue? I don't think it's a funding issue, but I will say that when we do get the funds allocated to various ministries and agencies, I think it's a release issue. If we can get the releases on time to the various ministries, I think that's where the problem lies, where ministries would have their various projects for the upcoming fiscal year, but because the monies aren't released in a timely manner, there causes a lot of setbacks. So with regards to funding, we have the funds, but having the funds released in a timely manner after that point, it is a culture issue. I would say that because of experience working in the public sector, Cross, for example, I was someone who was part of that team working on a project at my time at Registrar General's Department. And what you saw is that the older public servants who weren't adapted to using the computer, using online systems, were very much against the implementation of that online system. I think the culture throughout Trinidad and Tobago, where the older heads, be it in the public service, be it the private sector as well, we need to understand and realize that technology is the way of the future, and it's something we need to embrace. Sometimes change is uncomfortable, but that does not mean it's a bad thing, because change is the only constant thing that we have. So in that same breath, may I add that we like to, quote-unquote, knock the various governments at the time. May I just add that we are still a fairly young country, developing country. We don't have it all figured out as yet. We're getting there. As we see different governments coming and they are trying different things. Sometimes they're good things, sometimes they have little tweaks that need to be made. But sometimes let's focus on what we have and how we can make it better instead of always knocking the things that we're getting wrong. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much for your views on AI so far. We want to shift the conversation a bit. Of course, we all know that we have relied on the fossil fuels. I think we would have transitioned from oil to more gas sector, gas economy now. But of course, the big D word, that is diversification, that we have been speaking about for maybe the past, I think I was probably 8 years when I was introduced to the word, right? I get big, grew up going to school, and I come here to talk about that. No, but it's important because when we hear about, well, we want more money for this sector, we want more money for the question is, well, where it coming from? Where's that revenue, that projection or forecasting that every Minister of Finance is not an easy job to do, because you have to look at the global market, the way the economy is going, and how will you forecast what we have. I know Minister spoke about a windfall of gas in 2027, if I'm not mistaken. But of course, we have spaces and areas that we can develop in the country. Of course, as the orange economy, tourism, culture, and the arts. I know that, Senator Hislop, you're from Tobago, and so you must have an interest in Tobago and the allocation, and I want to I want to bring not just Tobago into the conversation, because we also look at the tourism sector in Tobago, which is quite huge. What are your thoughts on the orange economy and how we can better boost it? Did you hear anything that you found to be reasonable, great, good? Are you looking forward to hearing from the Minister Mitchell, who speaks on tourism and culture and the arts? So I want to get that into the conversation here. Tourism, what are your thoughts on it? Are we in a good place where we're heading?
Good morning, everyone. I am Janaya Jeffrey, and I represent the youth arm of Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, Chris brought up some wonderful, wonderful points, but if I could just touch on something that Ms. Keith said about the traffic issue in Trinidad and Tobago. We all came here this morning for roughly or approximately 9 a.m. Between the hours of 6 and about 9, the traffic on the roads are incredibly heavy. Like I said, I represent the youth arm of the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago. I recently completed an internship there. That internship is in Chaguanas. I live in Point Fortin. It's very far from there. This morning, I think in the budget, sorry, let me get my thoughts together. I think in the budget, there was a heavy emphasis on the works that have been done in Trinidad, the roads and bridges that have been built. But the name of that ministry is the Ministry of Works and Transportation. I don't think that we made enough emphasis on the transportation aspect of the country. I was recently a secondary school student. I just graduated. I use the public service every day to get to school. I cannot tell you the number of times. Now, I don't know what the public service is up here in Port of Spain, but down where I live in Point Fortin, the bus system is incredibly unreliable. I cannot tell you the amount of times that the bus shut down on my way to school, the bus not coming, it not working, it have no bus in the yard, and so on and so forth and so forth. The transportation system is not incredibly terrible. This morning, I must commend, I went on the water taxi this morning, and that was the best transportation experience of my lifetime. It was on time. I got there, I sat down, we pulled off. I said, oh, we're going fast. We got here to Port of Spain, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. But I think that more emphasis needs to be placed on the bus system, because I think that the traffic that we have on the roadways, if you all realize there are lots of new cars on the road, everybody and their mother, their father, their granny, and their auntie are buying a car, which I don't think is terrible. Personal comfort is amazing. But I think that if we invest in the transportation system, if we invest in the public transport, that people would not feel the need to buy cars. In San Fernando, we have a U-Park right next to the water taxi. And you would not imagine the amount of people that park their cars there and rather take the water taxi because of the transportation, because of the traffic on the roadways. So I think if we invest in the public service, in the PTSC, in that transport, that there will not be as many vehicles on the roadways, creating this cluster of traffic that we all had to sit in this morning to get here. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Joshua Thompson from St. Anthony's College. I would like to touch on one thing, if it was a culture problem or money problem, before I get to culture and, to put it very bluntly, as a country, we are very lazy. We don't like to do work. So let's just say for our, as we were talking about for license office, if I'm in charge of getting papers signed from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and I getting out my bed 9 o'clock and reaching in, and then I want to have breakfast and sit down, and it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock past, I just sit down on the table to sign papers. The time, 11 to 12, I might get 5 papers signed. Then 9 to 12, I could get about 20 papers signed. So there we see a problem with, we say that, it takes much more time to, let's just say, get our license and stuff. The time that it takes to what it should be, that's one of our main problems that I see that we have. Next to culture, and it was culture and
the orange economy.
Orange economy.
Yes.
Right. I see tourism at the same time as it is a good thing for Trinidad and Tobago. it's also at the same time could be a very bad thing. Yes, we could benefit from it because we have Carnival. That is a big tourism event that we have. But at the same time, we have very recently Zoe, who brings a very bad look to Trinidad, number one. And we had an incident where other YouTuber that came and went into these rural areas with guns and stuff like that and showcased it to the world. Yet, it, we may not want to say that's what Trinidad is and project Trinidad to be, but at the same time, when we have people that coming into our country and doing that, we need to have set rules and stuff that we need to imply that, these things would not happen. Yes.
All right, good morning, everyone. Just to shift the conversation a bit back to what Chris would have started with, you would have said some keywords: tourism, orange economy, and most importantly, Tobago. And if anybody knows me, they know when it comes to advocating for the interest of our youth, I stand on business barefooted. So to start the conversation, I want to engage Senator Hislop here, zoning in on the budget allocation for the island, of course. Just to start the conversation, Senator, not focusing on the recurrent expenditure, but the allocation for island development. Do you think that what was allocated is enough for the island? And I think we could start the conversation from there. In your opinion?
My opinion?
Yes.
Leave it up to my good friend to put me on the spot. What I would like to say is that we have to look at the budget not just from the Tobago allocation perspective. The THA is given 200 and I think it was 58 million or 85 million, somewhere there. 200 plus million for them to manage. That is for the Tobago House of Assembly to manage. You have to look at the development budget of Tobago also from a national perspective. So outside of that 200 plus million that the THA is tasked with the responsibility to manage, there is other significant development that the national government takes care of. So if you disaggregate, so the 200 plus million is under the responsibility of the Tobago House of Assembly. The national government has another, how much billion to treat with for other projects on the island. So let's look for, so when we talk about development of Tobago, we have to take Tobago's development in from a holistic view. So the development of Tobago also treats with an airport that is going to rival Piaco in terms of its aesthetics. I'm making no apologies for that. It is going to be a beautiful airport. That's $1 billion. The two ferries that operate between the two islands, my friend spoke about the water taxi. The government came into office and took care of a problem that was the inter-island ferry service. That's another $1 billion. And all of that speaks to development. The minister spoke about the coming of a marina. That's another, how much of $1 billion to do that. Then the divestment of Magdalena, which speaks to the orange economy. The marina also speaks not only to an orange economy, but it also speaks to a skilled-based society, because you have to have persons within Tobago who can work within the marina, because a marina is not just a place to park boats, but you're talking about the maintenance of craft and the storage of craft. The government is also looking to develop the Buku estate again, which was supposed to be the Sanders project. And I want to make this point before I allow you to contribute. There was a plan put in place by Dr. Rowley when he came into office, which was, as it relates to Tobago, it was supposed to see 3 major projects take place on the island, which would have taken Tobago to a different level. It was the Sandals and Beaches project, which was over 1,000 rooms. So that was a hotel project with a golf course. You had the airport project, which would have taken care of your increased arrivals because of a resort like Sandals and Beaches. Then you had the marina. And then on top of that, you have the Marriott project, which is, so when people, when the conversation speaks to development of Tobago, the Tobago House of Assembly is given a budget, or is given an allocation for them to treat with matters under the 5th schedule. And then the national government can also treat with development projects on the island that are major capital expenditures. The hospital in Roxborough, and we could go on and on. So that's just my take on that.
All right, Senator, I want to thank you for that, and thank you for, opening up our eyes to the development of the island from a holistic perspective. But I think that focusing on the island, we also need to zone in on the historical perspective where development is concerned. I think that the island of Tobago has seen so many administrations pass through the Tobago House of Assembly, and one common denominator we have observed is that there was always that need, and for the heads, they're always advocating for more money for the island. Now, you would have spoke about, the central government efforts to address some of the national issues, and you would have also spoke about the island getting an allocation to, really handle those things under the 5th schedule. Historically, I like to look at Trinidad and Tobago as fraternal twins. It's two islands, two different cultures, but at the end of the day, we are still one country. And I think it's really important that the island is given some sort of leeway for us to really manage the issues and manage the aspects of development that really speaks to the nuances that makes us Tobagonians. Now, you know that our tourism or culture, these are things that are our calling cards. And if it is that we are seeing that the current allocation for development can't really push us towards the type of development we are aiming for. You spoke about the airport that's going to be rolling out very soon, one that's going to be very competitive. Now, that is one aspect of development, but is the island of Tobago, this is another question I have, do you think that we have that development perspective? Because if we are anticipating so many people to now be flowing into the island, we have to ensure, for example, our heritage parks. If we get more money, we can ensure that every village has a heritage park. So when people come to Tobago, for example, they could do a nice trend. Okay, guys, we're going to Tobago, we're going to do a heritage park village hub. And when you go from village to village, you learn more about the island. You learn more about our history, things like the Belmana riots. These are things that are really true to our culture. But, Senator, when it comes down to the allocation that Tobago is given year after year, we appreciate there was some sort of increase while, talking about the numbers, and we need to also factor in the vernacular that some of our ministers use. They will use some sort of statements such as, this administration got more than, this administration got an increase. But when you look at the percentage, it still falls within the lower range, that 4.3 to 6.9% that the DRC would have recommended in the year 2000. I think you want to rebut me, so I'm going to allow you to rebut me a bit.
No, it's not a rebuttal. We have and I like the fact that this is an open national conversation. And I would also like to hear from some of our counterparts in Trinidad what is their take as it relates to Tobago's development. Because one of the interesting things about the structure of the THA that a lot of people don't understand is that when the allocation of $2.59 billion is given to the Tobago House of Assembly, even though the minister disaggregates it, that 2.599 billion, the Tobago House of Assembly is one of the only unique government institutions in the country that can reallocate its money as it chooses. So yes, all successive administrations would have faced the same scenario. And the reality is, you ask any minister or any government entity if they would not like more money, they'll tell you, yeah. They want because they're unable to. The truth is, and everybody says it, the work of the finance minister is not a position that you want to envy, because even your own colleagues may have problems with you because you're not. But when Tobago receives its allocation of 2 billion or 4.5 or 4.3% of the national budget, that's Tobago's allocation, and Tobago can choose to do as it sees fit in terms of the development. And over the years, we've seen other administrations treat with critical infrastructure that was done by the Tobago House of Assembly. So it's a conversation that we could have ongoing. But what's more important for me is what do you do with the allocation when you receive it, more than the fact that you want more.
I understand that,
Yeah.
Senator. Just one more point.
But can I just add here, you know, we are speaking diversifying the economy, not a steady allocation over the years. So I get your point. I get Senator's point where Tobago is one of the, islands of Trinidad and Tobago who can reallocate their money. The fact is that any ministry in Trinidad can reallocate their money. There's just a difference. They via to spend. So your points are well noted and totally understood when it comes to diversifying the economy, really developing Tobago, looking away from gas, as Chris would have said. So it's not just really speaking to an allocation and what Tobago can do with an allocation, but the fact of the matter and what the young man is really discussing is more is needed to really develop and diversify. And I think that's the main point of it,
that's the main point, to
diversifying
diversify the islands,
economy
yes.
and the island of Tobago. So your point is well received. I think it's really a discussion. It can go both ways, but the pros and cons can be weighed.
Okay, just one last very short point. I think the Senator knows me to be someone that always engages in thought-provoking conversations. As we are on that steed to, diversify the island of Tobago, Senator, I think the conversations about Tobago's autonomy, I think we need to bring it into play here. Because as we're speaking about needing more and needing more money, I think needing more control is also a factor. I just want to toggle your brain a bit to get your thoughts about about Tobago's autonomy and how we can factor that into our budgets in less than 30 seconds or less, because I know that people are waiting in line.
Yeah, so that's a discussion all by itself. We'll have that discussion off here, but there is an avenue for that is currently before the Parliament.
I believe. Okay, so really what I was trying to get at here is that, and I want us to maybe understand it a bit more, that we have relied on oil and gas, which is in a finite amount. Many companies are now more investment companies, financing companies are more interested in renewables. Of course, that is a transition. But there are areas in which we can earn more as a country outside of just relying on that. And so what are some of the innate abilities or talents that we have? For example, soca, calypso, how do we package that? What does that business model look like and how do we sell it? And I really want us to, as young people who have an interest, right, in I guess, part of our culture, what are your thoughts on that? Yes, we are looking to diversify the economy, but of course that orange area, do you think it's something worth investing in? Things that waste of money? Do you think that we have more talents, more to give to the world? I mean, when you look over in Jamaica and what they have been able to do with some of their artists, their food, even their language, that is now something that is, part of even the American culture and what we see as pop culture now. So I want to get your thoughts on that. What do you think we as a people can do in terms of diversification, specifically with the orange economy?
Good morning again. I'll get to what I was planning to say in a bit. I want to address the question of the moderator, which is how can we diversify within that tourism economy? So one of the things I was thinking about is when it comes to the island of Trinidad, when we think of tourism, we always think about Carnival. But we have many other things. Of course, yes, we need to continue funding Carnival because it's our biggest income earner in tourism in Trinidad. But there's other elements that we can start to market too. For example, we say Trini Christmas is the best. Across the islands in the Caribbean, people from Europe and North America often come during winter time to escape, the winter temperatures and stuff and have a vacation in the Caribbean. Why can't we market a Trini Christmas as part of our tourism as well? The southwestern peninsula of Trinidad and Tobago has enormous potential for tourism as well, from the Labre Pitch Lake to areas as far south as Cedros and the wetlands in Icacos. Oftentimes when people think of our national bird, the scarlet ibis, they always associate it with the Caroni swamp. Many people don't know you can actually see them in Icacos as well. And that brings me back to infrastructure. Because, for example, and I commend the government on the completion, well, it's almost complete, the Point Fortin Highway, and it's open now to vehicular traffic. However, we have places like, I believe it's the Southern Main Road on Mosquito Creek, which is a main artery to the Point Fortin Highway. A significant segment of that would have collapsed almost 2 years now, and we didn't see any allocations to that within the budget. So if I'm trying to market, let's say the Library Pitch Lake, for example, or other areas along the Southwestern Peninsula for tourism to diversify the tourism sector, how am I getting people to there? That's where the infrastructure problem comes in. On the, to commend the government as it relates to the island of Tobago, I think that the construction of the new airport from the Trinidadian perspective, I know the Honorable Senator said he wanted to hear the Trinidadian perspective on this. So I think the new airport, I had the opportunity to see the new airport recently. I think it's an excellent initiative because first of all, how are we going to bring people into Tobago if we have, you know, a tiny airport that can only accommodate like 2 planes at a time, and then people have to come out and walk in the rain, as the Prime Minister said. You know, so I think the airport is an excellent initiative, and as the Senator was saying, it needs to be followed with the relevant resorts to accommodate those people coming in. So I want to commend the allocation given for the renovation of the Magdalena Grand Hotel as well. And on the island of Trinidad, I believe they allocated $400 million for the renovations at the Hilton Hotel. So aside from diversifying in Trinidad with things like the Christmas season, looking away from the carnival season and other parts of the year, as well as different parts of the country, the Southwestern Peninsula, there's the East Coast as well. The East Coast, where they will be, I believe they said they're going to be making investments into the coconut industry on the East Coast. We can also look at the tourism sector on the East Coast from Mayaro, Manzanilla, all the way up to Toku. There's small resorts and stuff. We can build larger resorts, and we also need to look at the infrastructure in that region as well, the roads and so on, to support people getting in and out of these areas. You know, my colleague from Point Fortin was speaking earlier. It really is a hassle to get people from all the way Piaco to Point Fortin and further to places like Cedras and Icacos if we don't have the necessary infrastructure in place. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so with regards to diversification, as somebody who has been worried about the future, the economic future of our country, if we don't turn away from oil and gas, eventually, I was pleased to hear some of the statistics the minister would have mentioned in the budget, which included 28% of our GDP coming from accommodation and food, trade and repairs, and transport and storage, as well as certain things that he mentioned, like local chocolatiers and specialty rums being distributed to China, as well as, in addition to the hotels that Saeed would have mentioned, there's also the Maracas Bay Hotel, which is supposed to be completed by 2026. I think these initiatives are excellent, and I think the room for improvement there is having education that streamlines into these diversified industries. Because, for example, Trinidad and Tobago is the #1 fertilizer exporter in the West, right? That's not something most people know. And we also don't know about the opportunities in that industry. And as the young man from Tobago would have mentioned when he first started talking, was about the traditional jobs, such as doctors and lawyers, and how we need to get people to see the different degrees, the non-traditional degrees that we have. And I think there needs to be a link between the education system, what we learn in school, because in school we are pushed to sciences or to business or to humanities. We need to have that mindset of diversification from the secondary school level when you start to pick your subjects that follows into tertiary education and then to the diversification of the economy on a whole. Thank you.
Good morning again, everyone. To answer the question with regards to tourism and the arts, should we invest in it? Is there talent to showcase here? I think that there is. I think the main thing we invest in is the steel pan. We have a steel pan day now. There's a building being created, but there's more to Trinidad and its culture and its identity than just the steel pan, which is not showcased to the rest of the world. Like when I watched The Little Mermaid, right, the live action movie, I heard the pan in the background. I saw a Trinidadian actress, and I felt a sense of pride that some of our arts was being showcased there. But there's more to it. Previously, prior to the beginning of the discussion, when I had to list a fun fact about myself, I said I like to sing. I like music. I visited the Tobago Arts Festival, and there was not a lot of people, international people there. There were mainly Tobagonians, a few Trinidadians, and even less of foreigners. And there was a lot of talent in that festival that was not promoted. It wasn't advertised a lot. I only went because it was a school trip. I would not have known about it otherwise. And if we don't know about it in our own country, how are people outside of the country going to learn about it? It needs investments. It needs to be advertised more. I think that the government needs to take a role in ensuring that these talents are known, these arts are known, whether it's theater, music, dancing, because we do have a lot of talent in Trinidad. As I am involved in the arts myself, I see it. And I know that people who are not involved do not get to see that, do not know about it. So I really think that if we branch out, if it's more focused on, if it's more advertised, and if people take initiative in bringing light to it, that it would bring in a lot more foreign revenue in terms of tourism for the country, because there is a lot to be seen here. Thank you.
Good day again, Amy Ryan. So obviously the tourism industry is, thank you. So the tourism industry is definitely worth the investment from taxpayer dollars, because it can simply bring in so much more than what we put out. But I think something to bring into the conversation is being mindful of implications of the tourism industry and how we navigate avoiding certain problems such as environmental issues, increased pollution, and even cultural implications. For example, Carnival. Carnival is one of our biggest tourism events. It is the biggest tourism event that we have. But the Carnival that we portray now is a very commodified version of what it once was, and we sacrifice a lot of our culture for to bring in these tourists, to attract them. So I think we need to focus on investing as well into, yes, we want to attract these tourists, but we also don't want to compromise our cultural integrity. We come from a rich, very rich cultural and historical past, and we cannot sacrifice that for puppy show, right? So we need to also be aware of that. And then with environmental impacts, we are creating so much more hotels. We have the hotel in Tobago to be proposed to be constructed, as well as the one in Maracas, amongst other refurbishments. But we also need to look at the environmental implications. We are a small island developing state. Pollution is a huge problem in Trinidad and Tobago, and so we need to be mindful of what we are doing, because if we do not, yes, we will be getting money in the short term, but in the long run, we are setting ourselves up for so much more problems. So I think tourism, yes, needs heavy investment, but we also need to think for longevity, for our social well-being as a whole. Thank you.
So we have a few minutes left. I know we're running out of time. And so I know that we have some persons that are still willing and wanting to contribute, and we're going to still hear from you. But I want to hear as probably the last question. So we're speaking about the government, we're speaking about even sometimes your own member of parliament who may not belong to also the government. There may be an opposition MP, also some independent centers. It's Trinidad and Tobago. It's a small country, and everybody, in a way, almost know everybody. Like we saw the interaction between you and Mr. Luke. Yeah, you all seem to be friends.
We know each other.
You all are friends out there. I now understand. Right. So what it is though is that, as much as we discussed some of the bigger issues, we discussed the amount, if it was good, if it should be higher, we also discussed maybe more so of direction, policy, plan, that kind of thing. I want to hear about what are you willing to do. So we speak about the government, we speak about even your MPs, but what are you willing to do? We are young people. We're very privileged as well, because we're fortunate that if you do not have a platform, you have one when you turn on your phone. And so what are you willing to do? All of you all here, by just being present here, demonstrated that you're willing to participate in the conversation. But we want to know, in wrapping up, what are you willing to do as a young person when we speak about nation building? Because it takes all of us.
Thank you very much. Darian Mitchell, Tobago Youth Council. Thank you for the question. What I intend to do, or to continue to do, is to continue to provide a platform for young persons as well as to advocate for them in terms of developmental programs. Yes, the government provides, however, there are gaps in which we fall short. There are, yes, internship programs, summer internship programs, however, you have to meet a specific criteria in order to achieve this. And what we usually try to do with the Youth Council is provide resume writing workshops, public speaking workshops, and all of these entities that don't, for the persons who were not eligible or were accepted into these developmental programs. Now, I just want to tap back just a little bit because you asked about the orange economy and Tobago, and I felt like that touched me right here, right here. So one of the things I was looking at, and well, Senator Hizop would have mentioned almost everything I wanted to speak about. However, everybody always wants more money. The amount you receive is never enough because you always want to do more money, more problems. Now, the allocation that we have, why we could have received more as it relates to development, because the recurrent expenditure is about 90% of the allocation for Tobago. I believe that the airport provides a lot of job opportunities for young persons, skilled laborers, technical, you can name it. In addition to that, Tobago Carnival, allow me to have a free plug here, October 25th to 27th. Come on over, right? The international airport now, as somebody who travels, is very difficult because you have to wake up early, or sometimes you have to overnight in Trinidad to go across. To catch a flight, you might have to sleep on the airport based on the time of your flight, and then head on back. And then sometimes when you reach back in the last flight, you have to stay in the airport till 4 in the morning to come back across, and it's very difficult. Now, if we have the international airport there, it now opens the avenue for us to now have international tourists come directly to Tobago. And this would also boost Tobago Carnival, the Tobago Heritage Festival. If we bring back jazz, it could boost jazz as well. And all of these opportunities are there to boost the orange economy. How many of you all know what year Tobago Carnival is on? What year is Tobago Carnival on? Not you. Exactly, this will be the 3rd year. And a lot of persons don't even know that. And initially from the jump, we say we're Trinidad and Tobago, but not much persons pay attention to what is really taking place across on the sister isle. So from my perspective, I think the international airport, as well as the marina and all of the other entities, would boost the tourism for the island. Now, my focus for the THA is that we boost the advertisement in terms of what we have coming across, because the shows, the events, the cultural activities, these things are marketed, yes, but is it reaching the persons that we wanted to reach? So I believe that even with the international airport and all of these entities, more social media boosting, partner with ministries and have that these activities advertised. And finally, I would like to see from our division in terms of community development, youth development and sport, more programs that facilitate or foster those persons who are left out of the summer internship programs, something to help them boost them and develop them. Yes, there are community development programs throughout, but I want it targeted to specific age groups or cohorts of persons who just came out of school and probably got 2 subjects, 3 subjects, 4 subjects. But 2 subjects, you can't really do anything now, especially if you don't have maths and or English. Thank you.
While the mic is being set up for her, we have roughly maybe 5 minutes left. So if we can have these contributions in like 30 seconds, that would be perfect. Let's wrap.
Make it quick. Hi, I'm Christine from the University of the Southern Caribbean. And one thing that I can do to play my part is by being involved in discussions like these, not shying away from the issue, not leaving my future up to other people and getting involved, as well as by supporting local businesses and artists. We are always quick to support people from other countries and go and shop online and these other businesses. But we need to support what we have right now, and that is how we can further ourselves and position ourselves to reach where they are. Thank you.
Good morning again. The question is, what am I willing to do? And I think we could take a very basic approach of just telling others, keeping others educated and informed about the programs that the government have in place at the moment. I think we have a wide variety of programs at our disposal. And I think one of the issues we have is marketing these programs to reach the population, to reach a certain target population. Right, and I just wanted to talk back on the tourism issue. I think we need to move away from that sun tourism kind of thing, and we could branch out. We need to diversify our tourism product. We have sports tourism, we have countless state-of-the-art facilities, and we really need to market that to the region and international partners. And we also have ecotourism. We have the Asa Wright Nature Center. You know, we have a wide variety of different things that we could tap into where tourism is concerned. I just don't think the region and, again, international partners are knowledgeable on what we have to offer. And if we could really capitalize on that, I think tourism is an industry that will greatly benefit our economy.
Hello, good day everyone. I would like to add my contribution to more sport development and how that could help us market us as a nation. Because although there is music, soca, and all of these different things, sports is just as relevant, because in countries like Jamaica, I've been to World Juniors, they look at the Caribbean, they think Jamaica because they are so dominant in what they do. And I think we could reach those heights because we need to deviate so much focus from stadiums like H.G. Crawford and build and develop more facilities at the Larry Gomes Stadium and the Manny Ramjan Stadium so that we can have more competitions and better competitions to host and develop the athletes there, have more training centers available for athletes to do gym work, strength work, condition work, and also develop student athletes so that they could better manage both their athletics and academics so that they could still perform at a high level on both occasions. I also saw that they would be contributing hundreds of thousands of dollars to athletes who do give success, not just that, but also provide athletes with funds to prepare for the Olympic Games coming up. And I also think with that, not just that, we should also allocate funds to help student athletes that are even going away, and even as they return, still facilitate them so that they could have the needs necessary so that when they compete in the trials and in the games themselves, we can perform and bring back hardware for our nation. Thank you.
So, of course, Amaris, I want to know, how are you willing to take up this space?
How am I willing to take up this space? What I would like to do is to challenge you all. So how I take up this space. So two of my friends and I actually have a podcast show, and we are not afraid of touching on topics that are stigmatized in society, I would say. I also hold the National Affairs Committee chairperson position on the Guild at UWI St. Augustine. And what I like to do is to challenge you all to be able to speak up, to be able to be bold. You must be bold in every setting. Speak louder. Let your voices be heard in our society of Trinidad and Tobago. And to just close, I would like to thank all of you for being here today. You show interest in your country, and that is indeed commendable. I would like to thank the Senator and also our Member of Parliament here, and of course, Chris, for being our wonderful host here today. Thank you so much.